Welcome back to Room 44, where you don't just listen to horror, you live in it. Tonight's story begins in a quiet apartment, with footsteps coming from the floor above. The only problem, there is no apartment above. Let's begin. I moved into apartment 3B because it was cheap, quiet, and came with a lease that didn't ask too many questions. Perfect for someone trying to disappear. The building was old, probably pre-war. Creaky floors, heavy radiators, rusted mailboxes. But the neighbors kept to themselves, and the noise level was almost non-existent. Almost. Because every night, just after 1 a.m., I heard footsteps. From the apartment above me, heavy, deliberate footsteps, pacing from one end of the ceiling to the other. Back and forth, back and forth. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone worked night shifts. Maybe they were an insomniac. I've been both. But then I remembered what the landlord told me on the day I signed the lease. You'll like 3B, top floor, no one above you. I didn't believe it at first. Figured maybe he misspoke. So the next day I went outside and looked up. Sure enough, 3B was the top unit. There was no fourth floor. Just a slanted roof and an old maintenance hatch leading to the attic. Still, the sounds continued every night at 1:07 a.m. sharp. Footsteps, then dragging sounds, then sometimes a thud, like something heavy being dropped. Then silence. It never lasted more than 20 minutes. It was always exactly 20 minutes. Like clockwork. I started recording it just to prove I wasn't going crazy. I used a voice memo app. Every night, 1:07 a.m. Footsteps, dragging, thud, silence. It became a routine. But then, one night, it changed. The footsteps stopped halfway through, and something else began. Knocking. 3 soft knocks coming from the ceiling. I stared up at the plaster, heart thudding. Knock, knock, knock. Then a voice. Faint, like someone whispering into a wall from the other side. Help! I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I went to the landlord. Mr. Haskins was in his 70s, always looked half asleep. When I mentioned the sounds, he waved me off. There's no one up there, he said. There can't be. The attic's been sealed since the 80s. I pressed him. He shrugged. Some folks say this building's got quirks, old pipes, drafts, echoes. Don't worry about it. I wasn't convinced, so I asked for access to the attic. He laughed. You really want to go up there? You'll find more asbestos than answers. I insisted. Eventually he gave me a key. The attic entrance was in the stairwell, above a rusted ladder. I had to push the ceiling panel open and crawl through. Inside it smelled like rotting insulation and dead air. Dust danced in the flashlight beam as I moved through narrow beams and decaying insulation. No furniture, no signs of life. But then footprints in the dust. Fresh, leading from the hatch to the far wall, and stopping. There was no door, no crawl space, just a wall. But the footprints stopped there, like whoever left them had vanished into it. That night I blocked off the attic hatch with a chair. I didn't know what else to do, but at 1:07 a.m. the footsteps returned. Except now they weren't above me. They were in the hallway. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and crept to the peephole. The hallway was empty. But the footsteps kept going, walking back and forth just outside my door. Then another knock. Not from the ceiling. From inside my closet. 3 knocks, soft, precise. Then the same whisper. Help. I opened the closet slowly, half expecting someone to fall out. Nothing, just my clothes. But the back wall looked different. It was a slightly different color, like it had been recently repainted. I tapped on it. Hollow. I pressed harder. The panel gave way. Behind it was a narrow tunnel, unlit, cold, leading straight into the space between walls. I didn't go in, not that night, but I couldn't leave it alone either, so the next night I crawled in. The passage was tight, barely wide enough to move through on my knees. My flashlight flickered as I crawled deeper. The air smelled like mildew and copper. The walls pulsed with distant sound, maybe pipes, maybe not. Then I reached the end. A small room, no windows, 1 bare bulb overhead, and in the middle, a mattress. On it, a notebook. I opened it. The first page said, "You found it. That means it's your turn now." The next pages were filled with entries, dated, detailed, all written in different handwriting. Some were frantic, others calm. One entry read, "I've been here 9 days. The footsteps never stop. If I close my eyes, I see the door. I don't want to open the door." Another said, "Don't listen to the voice. It lies." And another, "If you leave something behind, it stays with you." At the very back, a final page. My name was Daniel. I was in 3B before you. I ran out of that space like my skin was on fire. Back in my apartment, I couldn't think straight. I packed a bag and made plans to stay at a friend's place. But when I opened my front door, it was brick, solid brick wall. Like my apartment was never connected to the hallway. I turned back. The windows were gone, only walls, every exit sealed. I was alone, in a place that didn't obey logic anymore. The journal was on my table. I didn't bring it there. I opened it. New page. Specimen 4 initiated. Observation cycle begins at 1:07 a.m. I tore it apart. But every time I blinked, it reappeared. Sometimes on the counter, sometimes in the fridge. Once it was on my pillow when I woke up. Now the footsteps don't wait until 1:07. They follow me all day. Sometimes I feel breath on the back of my neck. Sometimes I see shadows in the reflection that don't belong to me. But worst of all is the door. It appeared last week, in the kitchen. Just standing there, freestanding, black wood, no handle. Every day it gets closer. Now it's 3 feet from my bed. I don't sleep anymore. Tonight the door was open. Inside I saw my apartment, but everything was reversed, like a mirror. And standing in the center, it was me, not a reflection. Me, but he smiled. And I didn't. Would you open the door if it meant answers? Or is not knowing the only thing keeping you safe? If this story twisted your mind, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because at 1:07 a.m., Room 44 will return.